Do you think donors have too much leeway on the running of American elite colleges? That is, do you think donors have too much leeway in the running of American elite Ivy League colleges? And I think this is in part because you have donors calling for the resignation of the three Ivy League presidents, that is Liz McGill of UPenn, who has already resigned, and of course you have, I think, Harvard President Claudine Gay, who is under pressure to resign, but of course I think about 500 faculty or so have come to her defense, and of course you have also faculty of MIT coming to the defense of their president. So a lot of donors are saying that the universities are not doing more. The universities are not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism in their campuses. And of course, these calls, maybe donors, especially donors, I think are rescinding their gifts to these institutions. And I think you have gift officers in these universities. I think, according to an article on the Harvard Crimson, gift officers are wary that donors will likely not write the huge checks they usually write because they are frustrated that Harvard is not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism, that Harvard did not come out strong after a group of Harvard students came out strongly to write a letter that they wholly condemn Israel for the Hamas attacks. Of course, that caused an uproar, and of course you had a truck going around Harvard. You had a talk going around Harvard with the names of the most anti-Semitic students at Harvard. So basically, I think donors, how should we separate? Because on the one hand, the universities need that money. That's why they remain, they are able to attract the best and brightest from across the world. And I think that is because they have huge endowment funds. I think Harvard has an endowment of about $50 billion, and then you have UPenn. I think UPenn has an endowment of about $22 billion, MIT about $35 billion, Yale about $40 billion. So these are not just academic institutions, they are corporations in their own right, and I think maybe donors, because so long as that money is going to come from donors, then they are going to underwrite, then they are going to have leeway on what these students, the conduct of these colleges. And I think these colleges, I think the tuition fees from students alone is not enough to run the many programs in these colleges, and that's why they resort to their endowment. And of course, the interest from the endowment, I think, only funds about a third of the budget of this institution. So the rest, 2/3 of the budget, is funded by either tuition fees from the students or I think gifts by alumni or other donors. And I think. And that's why donors have so much leeway over these institutions. I think at UPenn you had a big donor, it's the Workman, who came rescinded a gift of $100 million to establish the Center of Innovation in Finance. Of course, you remember UPenn has the famous Wharton School of Business that is reputed to be even better than the Harvard Business School. So the Wharton School of Finance is basically reputed to be the best business school in the world. And of course, when you have a big donor rescinding about $100 million, then that sure will affect the academic mission of these institutions. But then you have, I think at Harvard, you have professors coming out very strongly and saying that they wholly oppose. That is, at Harvard, you have professors coming out very strongly and saying they oppose any way they oppose they oppose the pressure from these donors to force President Claudine Gay to force her to resign. So they say that basically the university should be shielded from political pressure from lawmakers and from donors. So how then can these universities be practical enough so that they don't have this pressure from donors? So the practical thing would be to increase the tuition fees, but so this will make them only be palatable, be affordable towards the students. So how will the poor students be able to pay when the universities have, when these colleges, when these universities have for the past decade or so been emphasizing diversity, equity, and inclusion? So I think for now And then for now, then I think it's a very hard thing for donors, and I think that's why it's very hard for these universities because they need the money on the one hand, but they also need academic freedom, because that's the whole essence of an academic institution, is for that college to be able to pursue their mission. I think the president of UPenn, that is Elizabeth McGill, resigned because I think it was not only about her punctured remarks, by Congresswoman, the new Congresswoman Stefanik. It was also about a growing rebellion was growing when she allowed, I think, when she allowed a group of Palestinian literary writers to have a conference at the college, and of course, I think a lot of Jews were not happy with that statement. So basically, donors exerting pressure on academic institutions is nothing new, but of course, then the university has to have some non-disclosure, has to have an exclaimer that basically your donation should not direct the course of academic journey of this college. How many donors will accept that their donation has no bearing on the academic journey of one institution? And I think that is where the problem is, that the donors would want some way. Of course, they feel very happy when a department is named after them. I think you have Kenneth Griffith gifting Howard about $300 million. Then you had Henry Paulson gifting Howard, I think, the largest endowment of about $400 million to establish the Department of, to establish, I think, the School of Engineering, the School of Sciences, and the School of Engineering Sciences, I think, at Alston, which is doing a lot of criticism from the local residents. So why is it that, how is it that donors really are exerting a lot of pressure on these academic institutions? So I think for now, I think faculty will resist, but they should know part of their salary, part of their paycheck comes from these donors. And I think that shows, maybe that shows a problem in funding of these private colleges. I think maybe as they have grown to be having billions in endowments, then they have partly lost their academic freedom, and I think that will continue. And I think maybe these institutions should look for ways to internally source for revenue, or maybe look for ways to patent, to have industry collaboration, so that they can maybe patent their research and commercialize their research. I see no other way. They just need to commercialize their research, so that they can then be able to get a lot of profits from the commercialization of their research. But of course, others will argue that this money comes from American taxpayers. Some of this money comes from American taxpayers, especially maybe research in cancer, maybe comes from the National Health Institute, NIH. And so I don't know how these universities are going to basically be very much independent, but I think it is just in commercializing their research. I think that's the only way these colleges are going to be independent. Otherwise, if they are going to take the check from the donors, then they should expect that donors will have a leeway. Even if a donor says that this gift has no conditions on it, but of course they will not be happy if their gift is used in certain way. They will expect a certain conduct from the university. They will expect a certain behavior from the university. This is not in any way condoning anti-Semitism in these campuses. Far from it. This is basically just calling out that these universities have to be financially independent, and if they are going to be financially independent, they have to look inward. And I think part of the problem, why are they pandering to the hedge funds at these colleges? Why are they pandering to the hedge funds? And I think this is basically selling their soul. If they are pandering to the hedge funds and high finance, I think maybe they need to do more. Let them commercialize their research. You had Harvard and MIT. They sold their edX online learning platform. So I think the universities are not so good in commercializing their research, but I think this is the only way these colleges then can have financial independence, so that then they can so that they can get off this dependence on hedge fund managers who really have not added much value to society, but I think are directing these colleges in very unfamiliar territory of academic restraint. So you let me know on what you think of whether donors should be having, whether donors are having too much leeway in, especially in elite American Ivy League colleges.